Aha! I think we might be live. Apologies about the sprint. Horrendous technical issues. Nearly had a camera issue there. For this stream as well, I was about to just give up on the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, if honest. Oh, I got up at 2 a.m. and there was no Wi-Fi in my house. So I had to go downstairs and try and reset it. And I didn't actually get Wi-Fi back until we were about 7 laps into the sprint. So I just gave up. Here we go. And then I just tried to reset the stream again. And this time my camera wouldn't turn on. But we're there now. Whew. What a sprint, by the way. I managed to catch it eventually. As I say, I kind of had to go backwards because I started 7 laps in. Or probably even later than that, maybe 10 laps in. But we went backwards. I've seen the sprint now. What a sprint race it was. Like, I know that some people are not happy with these regulations, but my goodness me, is that not the best sprint that we've had ever? Like, the sprint races have been, let's face it, pretty rubbish. And I could look at every single sprint race from 2022 to 2025, and I think the sprint race that we got in China was better than all of them combined. Like, it was so much fun. The Ferraris are keeping things exciting, and I'm absolutely loving it. Max is cooked. Well, well, yes. I don't think it's Max's fault. I think the Red Bull is not great through these corners. I think, I mean, should we start there? Should I pop the, I'll pop the race board up from, oh, forgot I had the championship board there. Let's hide that very quickly. Let me put the race board up from the sprint race because, as I say, it was traumatic for Max Verstappen and team. You will notice that Max Verstappen did not finish inside of the point scoring positions. A 9th place finish for the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. What's going wrong there? I mean, first and foremost, they got it all wrong in terms of the setup yesterday, didn't they? In terms of qualifying, they sort of came out, put their hands up and said, you know, we got it wrong here. We didn't quite get everything in the right position that we wanted it to be in. And then it came to the sprint race, and it still wasn't quite right. I think what we're seeing is these cars in particular, maybe bar Mercedes and Ferrari, are going to have tracks that they're strong at and tracks that they're weak at, depending on the power unit they've got, depending on the aerodynamic setup that they've got, more so than we saw last year. I think, you know, we did have ups and downs last year, and we had teams that were stronger in various areas. But I think, especially in the midfield, and we can maybe sort of drag Red Bull not into the midfield conversation completely, but at least into the midfield conversation for some tracks. I think it's going to have a massive change, mainly because of that energy deployment. Like we saw Melbourne last weekend, where energy was pretty hard to come by. And in fact, you know, the FIA and Formula One sort of said, right, because energy is so tricky to get here, we're going to change the energy deployment for qualifying. We're going to change the energy deployment allowed in various different sessions. The energy is a little bit easier to come by here. And I think we're seeing the teams that maybe struggled to deploy as much energy actually now bouncing back, and Red Bull, who seem to have an advantage on energy, because that advantage is not there anymore because they can't, just use that advantage because everyone else has all of the energy available to them as well. They're now sort of dragged back into it a little bit, and they don't stand out as much as they did in Melbourne. And, you know, Max Verstappen was able to start from 19th place and get himself all the way through the field up towards the sort of top teams and fighting with the McLaren of Lando Norris towards the end. That just wasn't the case here because everyone else had the energy deployment that Max had. And Max then through these kind of corners, you know, it is aerodynamically as well. Like the power output of the Red Bull is still fine. It's through the corners this weekend where it's starting to sort of lack maybe, and aerodynamically doesn't look as stable as some of the other cars out there. And I think that's where now they need to look at that, right? I think Red Bull do have the best energy deployment, and on tracks where energy is really, really sort of hard to come by, they will stand out and they will still be good. I think in tracks where energy deployment is fine and everyone gets energy, it's going to be really tough, because then it comes down to aerodynamics, and then the Red Bull just doesn't quite look like it's got the same power and same ability to sort of keep the car stable through the corners to allow Max Verstappen to attack it. We know Max Verstappen loves a really pointy car. Maybe has driven some of the pointiest cars in Formula One history in 25 and sort of backwards through to 2022. Now it looks on the edge still, but not in a nice way. Max has been struggling in the corners since last race. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think now we're sort of seeing that the aerodynamics, and when the battery is there for everybody and the energy deployment is there for everybody, the Red Bull put on a par in terms of energy deployment. It's in the corners where it now really starts to look pretty unstable. But yeah, Max Verstappen finishing outside of the points. Don't know how we started there, because the real talking point from the sprint race was surely another battle between Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc. I was going to say Antonelli, but Antonelli was having his own little battle by himself down there. I think when it comes to qualifying today, unfortunately, and I shouldn't probably say this at the beginning of the stream, because we do want a little bit of jeopardy going all the way to the end. But I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a Mercedes 1-2 again, with the Ferraris and the McLarens just behind. Like, there does seem to be quite a clear hierarchy. And where last year we had sort of really exciting qualifyings, maybe followed by quite dull races, I think what's happening this year is we're almost having the opposite of that. We're saying, all right, qualifyings are probably going to be pretty, set in stone. Qualifyings are not going to have too many drivers sort of chopping and changing too much. Maybe a little bit here and there in the midfield, just because of that energy deployment that we talked about, and whether or not a car is stronger in terms of energy or in terms of aerodynamics, and those two things kind of combining throughout the midfield and seeing who is where. But I still think that we're going to have, fairly boring qualifyings, but followed up by really exciting races. And I'd prefer it to be that way around, because 2025, there were some Grand Prix weekends where I was like, great, we've got to get up for 2 hours of racing, and not a lot is going to happen because we were in this dirty air. All of the aerodynamics didn't really come into play. DRS wasn't effective enough in a lot of the racetracks that we had anymore, because even with really long DRS straights, and yes, you can make adjustments to the DRS straights, but not that much. Monza, for instance, the aerodynamics are the fact that they run such a small rear wing anyway that the DRS made no difference whatsoever. Now, at least, we've got the battery. And yes, I know some people are like upset that the battery doesn't feel like proper racing as much as that sort of, I don't agree with that terminology and the fact that it's artificial. Also don't agree with that terminology either. I think Formula One is artificial. I think all racing is fairly artificial. Like, unless you are literally watching go-karts or like a spec series where all of the cars are literally absolutely identical. Of course, there is going to be artificial parts to it. I think that's just to and fro. I think this season is way better. I think 2026 so far has been way, way better than 2025. And I'm saying that as a McLaren fan who got to see Lando Norris win a championship. And, the McLaren team, would I prefer this season even more if McLaren were winning races? Absolutely. But the racing and the overtaking and the fact that we're seeing drivers go for moves, it's like everyone's saying, oh, it's all about energy deployment. Well, Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton were making overtakes through like turn 4. They're not deploying huge amounts of battery through there. We're not seeing just DRS straights determining every single overtake. Last year in China, you would have only seen overtakes in turn 14 and turn 1, because that was where the DRS zones were, right? The DRS zones were going down towards turn 14 and down towards turn 1. And the drivers wouldn't bother trying to make a move through turn 2 or through turn 9 or something crazy because there was no point. Like, you literally just wait for the DRS straight. You're better off just waiting for the DRS straight and going for a move down there. This is way better. Hamilton was like flying past George Russell through turn 14, and then Russell was coming back at him at turn 1, and then Hamilton was overtaken through turn 4, and Russell was coming back at him through turn 6. Like, this is way better because we're actually seeing overtakes in loads of different parts of the track. Want real skill? Go back to Prost and Mansell. Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Like, but in this day and age, you are not going to get that. In this day and age, unfortunately, if you are a Formula One fan from like the 80s and you want the sport to be exactly the same as it was then, you're never going to get that back. Even if you're a fan of the sport from, I'd say, the early 2000s and you want the sport to be that, you're never going to get that back, right? Formula One changes. Formula One was different in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and there would have been the same problems, right? They'd have brought in new regulations in 2000, and the people who were fans in the 70s would have said, oh, this isn't real racing, this is so artificial, etc., etc. Every generation has this, and every generation has its negative people, and I'm not going to be one of those. Like, I think it's way too easy to be negative. Way too easy. And I know it probably does better. Like, for views, if you're negative, it does better. Like, I've seen that as someone who's made content. If you're negative about somebody, it does better than if you're positive about somebody. And therefore, like, I could just be negative, right? I could easily stand here for 20 minutes and complain. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I am enjoying the racing in 2026, and I do think it's better. And I think it's more fun. Like, I think it's more fun for the sport. I think it's better as an entertainment, which Formula One is, right? I am never going to be a Formula One driver. So I don't care if the cars are very nice to drive or not. I am never going to drive one. I want the cars to be fun and exciting and allow overtaking and allow battles for the lead and allow battles for points, because that's where I'm at. Like, I am a supporter. And people who like jump on the bandwagon and are like, oh, Max Verstappen doesn't like the cars. You are not Max Verstappen. Don't worry about it. Like, he's not actually going to leave, by the way, because he's getting paid like $80 million a year. He is not going to leave until he's earned enough money. Well, he probably has earned enough money now to completely live off of it for the rest of his life. And he's still going to get brand deals and so on. But he won't leave, right? He will not leave until it suits him to leave the sport. Maybe he'll go on and do GT3 racing, but I don't think it'll be for another couple of years. You know, I don't know if Max Verstappen's going to be like a Fernando Alonso or a Lewis Hamilton and stay forever, but also most drivers aren't. Like, I don't think we should set that as the norm now. I don't think we should expect drivers that come in at 16 years old, like Max Verstappen, to stay until they're 45. I don't think that's going to be the norm. I think Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, that kind of generation of driver are very much a one-off. Like, I don't think we should set that expectation. But thank you for the follow over on Twitch. Appreciate that. We're trying to build the Twitch. Thank you for all the new subscribers as well, and all of the new followers in the recent season. Let's talk about the actual results as well, though, because we can have a little look at the championship board. If I grab my mouse. I've put my desk too far away from where I'm standing. Oh. Well, Multiviewer have decided that they would not allow us to see the championship board. So we can't look at that. George Russell is leading the championship, and it was another really great battle between George Russell and Ferraris at the front of the pack. Again, like the Ferraris kind of got in each other's way at one point. And I think that's the only reason where George Russell kind of escaped away from the two of them, because Hamilton was keeping George Russell properly in it and was reeling him in every couple of laps or so. And they were having a proper back and forth for the lead of the sprint race. Kimi Antonelli, another disappointment. Again, just another bad start. One thing that is absolutely saving these regulations, and one thing that we do need to highlight, is just the Ferrari cars getting the sprint race absolutely spot on. Oh, sorry, getting the race starts absolutely spot on. I mean, in the sprint race as well, but also in the Grand Prix last weekend in Australia, really does add to the excitement of these, because we just know that even though, yes, the Mercedes cars are going to be on the front row of the grid, the Ferrari cars are going to be right alongside them turn one. It's not like they are going to be, able to run away from pole position and that's done and dusted. If the Ferrari cars start the race third, fourth, fifth, they're going to be right there. And, we saw Lando Norris try and hold on for a little bit of contact as well between some of those top drivers. That's what we want to see. That is what we want to see. Ollie Behrman gets himself up into the points once again. Liam Lawson had a really good drive. I know that not everybody is Liam Lawson's best fan, but Liam Lawson from P13 up to P7 pick up a couple of points for Racing Bulls. Like, he had an exceptional sprint race. And again, we would never have seen a driver go from P13 to P7 unless it was Max Verstappen or Lando Norris last year, because drivers just wouldn't have been able to make those overtakes and they wouldn't have had the time in a sprint race to be able to actually get there. And, there's no tire advantage. There's no things like that. So I think, Liam Lawson going from P13 to P7 in a midfield car is also a very, very, exciting thing, and is also oh, okay, these sprint races could be properly fun. Like, these sprint races could be seeing overtakes and doing things that we're not expecting. So I really enjoyed that as well. Hulkenberg had a little bit of an issue, dropped out. There was some contact between Antonelli and Hadjar, which picked up Antonelli a penalty. It was all happening. It was a little bit of chaos. The sprint race was exactly what you want a sprint race to be honest. It was a short burst of ridiculousness, some proper battles, some people actually wanting to get positions, because last year, again, most people just kind of settled in. They were like, right, we've qualified P7, we'll just take it. It's not worth trying to get 2-3 positions ahead. We'll just take P7 and then we'll go into qualifying. Nah, today, people were going for it. People wanted those points. People were flying around corners at one another and trying to make those moves happen. And as I say, it was really exciting to see moves not just through the expected corners where we have seen overtakes in years gone by. Let me quickly also show you. Oh, actually, predictions is your last chance to get predictions in. I know that we've had the sprint race, so you can maybe use that as a little bit of a helping hand, but it is your last opportunity to get your predictions in before tomorrow's Grand Prix. Head over to the posts tab. You can get your predictions in. You just have to predict the winner of the race, your 2 podium sitters, your surprise package for the weekend, the best team in the race, the struggle team, the flop team, and also the driver you think is going to struggle the most. Spam in the Shorts live chat. Oh, where is this? I haven't got the... Oh, no, I have got the chat in front of me. Maybe I just missed it. I was looking at something else. But we're there now. It's fine. We'll be okay. In terms of strategy and in terms of bits and pieces that we need to know for qualifying and for the race tomorrow, really, this is how it plays out in terms of tyres. Obviously, for the sprint qualifying yesterday, they only had to use the medium tyre for Q1 and Q2. Now have the soft compound tyre available to them, so maybe we'll see a little bit of a shake around in terms of where those midfield teams sit. If one of the midfield teams maybe wasn't the best on the medium compound tyre yesterday for qualifying, but they can get the soft compound tyre working for them today. The C2, C3, C4 compounds available to them. It's a weird track, isn't it? Because it is usually fairly stressful on tyres. I think we will see... I was going to say we will see a 2-stop tomorrow. I'd love to see 2-stop be the optimal strategy, but by a tiny little bit. I'd love the 2-stop to be optimal, but the 1-stop available for those cars that are willing to hold off on their pace just a little bit here and there. That's what I want to see tomorrow. I want to see a 2-stop strategy with a little bit of 1-stop strategy mixed in there from a few of those cars that are just sort of gambling on maybe a safety car or something. 24 seconds, though, the pit stop length. So it is quite a long pit stop here. Therefore, you don't really want to stop that many times, which is why I don't know if the two-stop strategy will make its way here. We did obviously see a pit stop during the sprint race as well, which was quite interesting, just because of safety cars and virtual safety cars kind of playing into that favor. Don't normally see pit stops during the sprint races. But again, that means we didn't really get to see how long those tires would last entirely. I used to love sprint races, but the starts also make them, but they have been nerfed. Do you think? I think the sprint races used to be fairly boring, and now they are actually, quite good. Two-stop seems good. Graining looks super rough. Yeah, that's what I mean. I'd quite like to see the two-stop strategy work and the two-stop strategy kind of be the one. But we didn't get to see a full sprint on those tires. We didn't get to see the full degradation. Although from the sort of 12, 13 laps we got to begin with before some drivers sort of came in, we did see quite a few drivers kind of pushing those tires. And we started to see those little fragments of tire coming off, that graining that you get on the top of the top surface of the tire. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to the multi-stop strategies and where people are at with that. It'd be nice to see Ferrari split the strategies. Unlike they did in Australia. Because I think they are right there. As we saw in the sprint race, they are right there with George Russell again. And Leclerc and Hamilton were all over George Russell at various different points. I think Ferrari need to split the strategy, one, so that they don't have their two drivers on top of one another. Because I think that really helped George Russell, to be honest, when Ferrari started battling with each other and Hamilton and Leclerc started swapping positions. That really helped George Russell out. But secondly, if they split the strategies with the Ferraris, that doesn't happen. And Mercedes have something to think about, because it does feel like it's 2v1 at the minute. Kimi Antonelli is not having the best of times, and Kimi Antonelli looks just a little bit off of it in terms of this weekend. Obviously, there's only one free practice session here. Had a really slow start once again in the sprint. Kind of had to battle back through the pack, but didn't do it in the cleanest fashion. Ferrari going to do 3 stops to compensate for Australia. No. They don't need to do anything that silly, but I'd like to see them do, a swap of strategy or something, because I think they could win this race. I genuinely think Ferrari could win this Grand Prix if they qualify anywhere within the sort of top 4 or 5 positions, as they kind of have been. They're right in the mix in terms of pace when it comes to qualifying with McLaren, aren't they? Like, we need the Ferraris to just come out. And I know I'm saying this as a McLaren fan, but we need the Ferraris to just come out that tiny little bit ahead of the 2 McLaren cars, I think, in terms of qualifying here. Because then that guarantees them at least a second row start, depending on what Kimi Antonelli does. Maybe even a front row start. It'd be great to see what the Ferraris can do from the front row. Like, if it's George Russell on P1 and then Charles Leclerc on P2, does the Ferrari just absolutely blitz him down to the line? Because at the minute, we're seeing them sort of come from P4, P5, and be just about enough alongside to cause George Russell a little bit of a problem and sort of go for a move here and there. I think it'd be very interesting to see like how far ahead the Ferrari would be if they started on the same sort of front row of the grid. But that's by the by. I think Ferrari need to be in that zone, and then they can go for that overtake. Be interesting to see where the Red Bulls are. Will they be able to get through to Q3 again? I think they should be able to, but I also imagine they've made some pretty dramatic changes to that car. So it depends whether those dramatic changes to the car actually mean that now it's better or worse. It's always a gamble when you decide to change the setup on the car. It's never absolutely like locked in that you will make the car better. I think the McLarens will be in the top 10. And then it's kind of, Gasly was there. Had a little bit of a tough sprint race, though, did Pierre Gasly. And it's Ollie Behrman as well. I'd love to see them up in the top 10. Basically, Gasly and Behrman are the standouts, obviously, from yesterday's sprint qualifying. Maybe a Bortoletto in there. They're kind of my 3 from the midfield that I'm most excited to see what they can do this season. I think because Behrman, he's eventually going to go to Ferrari, whenever that may be. Obviously, with the Ferrari looking fairly good this season, maybe Lewis Hamilton will stick around a little while longer. Could be kind of a George Russell situation where Lewis Hamilton sort of, because he was doing so well, kind of blocked the move from Williams to Mercedes for George Russell. He might now end up doing the same at Ferrari, right? We're kind of waiting for Lewis Hamilton to shuffle out of the way so we can see Ollie Behrman step up into that main team. Maybe we'll kind of see Lewis Hamilton sort of hold him back just for a little while. I really hope so. Or I really hope not, sorry, because I hope we get to see Ollie Behrman up in that Ferrari car sooner rather than later. I should grow a goatee again. I've never had a goatee in my life. I am either clean shaven or I am lazy and left it a week. That's the two. I've never had a goatee in my life. Grow a soul patch. Also not happening. But yeah, let's get the likes up. I appreciate that talk in the chat. I would absolutely love the likes to go up. In terms of this, I think in terms of Q1, again, we're going to see Bottas and Perez. I mean, even if the Cadillacs can get themselves working again, I think it's tough for Cadillac. Like, there's a lot of pressure on them to sort of perform. They're a big name in motorsport, but I think they're learning it is very, very hard to come into Formula One and sort of do it all from scratch. I know that they've got the Ferrari engine, but actually I think the chassis and aerodynamic side of things way harder. Although, you're seeing it with Audi. Audi have kind of got the Sauber chassis playing in their favor, and then they've got the Audi engine. So they've kind of done the same thing, but from the other side. They've focused on bringing their own engine in first, whereas Cadillac have had to focus on bringing their own chassis in first. Kind of shows you the difference between those two things, and also the fact that Audi were very early in the engine negotiations for these 2026 regulations. The stubble I had. Yeah, that's just laziness, I'll be honest. That's pure, unadulterated laziness. That is me just having a long week at work, is what normally happens. And I was away. No, last weekend we were Australian. Last weekend we were doing Australian Grand Prix. So I was up at ridiculous times and then sleeping at weird moments as well. Like, I was all over the place last weekend. Get the likes up? Yeah, get the likes up. We are about to start qualifying, though. Shall I get it up in front of us? Slightly change the qualifying board, so hopefully it still fits on the screen. Yes. Oh, I need to do this. So we've got the driver radios there for you. And we have got cars coming out on track. Alonso segment now. That's not me, mate. That is not my part. I can't. That is copyrighted by Mr. Daniel of No Skill. If I did an Alonso segment, I'd get a cease and assist. But here we are. Interesting that Cadillac are like first out on track this time around. Colapinto, Lindblad, and Hulkenberg. Please don't DNF. I'd like to see actually Lindblad in the top 10 would be quite nice as well. I'm assuming it's going to be that top 8 again. Like, depending on what Red Bull have done to the car. Certainly the top 6 that we saw yesterday, I think will be the same top 6 again for this qualifying too. But then it's the midfield cars where they could have shuffled things around. So once the sprint race finishes, Parc Fermé is open. So the teams and drivers can make pretty like substantial changes to their cars between now and the start of, or between, sorry, the end of the sprint and now is what I was going to say. So there will be cars that are looking pretty different through certain parts of the track, as Valtteri Bottas is going to get us underway, setting the standard early in the Cadillac. Bottom 5 discussion. If I had to pick, Bottas and Perez, Alonso and Stroll. And then will the Williamses be able to get themselves out of there? Maybe Colapinto gets dragged into that bottom 6 in this qualifying today compared to qualifying yesterday where he was just right on the fringe. Macarena wing. The Macarena wing is no longer, unfortunately, on the Ferrari car. It was on the Ferrari car for free practice 1, but Lewis Hamilton said it was maybe a little bit premature to put the Macarena wing on the Ferrari car for the first and only free practice session here in China. Maybe just needs a little bit more work. Not Franco the GOAT. 39k until 200. I would absolutely love to hit 200k this year. I think this year is the year. We're pushing hard. Not applicable to 200. Crash happy to like as many as humanly possible. I think if we could get crash happy to like 50 or 60k, that'd be insane. We're going to go big this year. It's happening. I think a video coming out on crash happy. I was going to say maybe today, but I don't want to put Dan under any pressure. Dan is editing a video for us at the moment. It'll be with you soon. It'll be with you soon. Alonso for pole. Now that is some hopium. I want one of whatever you've had. Franco Colapinto goes 0.9 of a second quicker than Valtteri Bottas, the two drivers that have finished substantial lap times at this point. Charles Leclerc has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector with a 24.723. Max Verstappen setting the standard through the middle part of the lap. You'll see those purple sector being highlighted on the stream to my right. Charles Leclerc, though, again, quicker than Verstappen through the middle part of the lap as well. So Charles Leclerc now takes the fastest middle sector. And I always think, like here in China, the middle sector is the one that really kind of counts. Because if you look at the final sector, I suppose you've got turn 11 and turn 12, which are kind of tricky. But the final sector is mainly just the back straight, which I suppose just gives you a look at the top speed of the cars. As Max Verstappen goes quickest of anybody so far. As Verstappen, Hadjar, Lawson are top 3. If you're a Red Bull Powertrains fan, you'd be absolutely ecstatic with that. Until Charles Leclerc comes along and ruins the party, but doesn't go quickest. Charles Leclerc. I was expecting him to just slot into top spot there. But Charles Leclerc only second fastest, and Lewis Hamilton up into P5. Have Red Bull been able to fix their car? As Pierre Gasly also then goes 0.004 of a second quicker than his good friend Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri has been able to go fastest of anybody through the first and second sectors, although that second sector time has just been beaten by Nico Hülkenberg, of all people. So Hülkenberg fastest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. As I said, for me, the most important part of the lap. And Piastri now coming around the final corner. What's the McLaren's lap times like at the moment? Piastri up into top spot. There we go. Lando Norris went quickest, and then Piastri goes 0.4 of a second quicker than his teammate. Absolutely lovely. That should be good enough. Slot them back into the garage and prepare for Q2. Nico Hülkenberg goes second fastest of anybody and splits the two McLaren cars. Bottas and Alonso now slotting themselves into that bottom 6. Oh, no, sorry. It's Bottas and Stroll. Now Bottas, Alonso and Stroll into that bottom 6. Still yet to see George Russell and Kimi Antonelli and Sergio Perez's car. Also not out on track as of yet. Oh, no, sorry. He's out on track. I thought he was still in the garage. He is just coming around turn 6 now. Where are the Mercs? I think they're just waiting for a little bit of a track time or a little bit of traffic to move out of their way, because Kimi Antonelli is just coming through turn 6 now, and George Russell making his way around turn 3 on your screens. Sergio Perez is putting in a lap time for Cadillac, is about 0.9 of a second down as he finishes the second sector. Has to deal with a McLaren and an Alpine getting out of his way as Colapinto and Piastri move out of the way of the Mexican. Perez using everything that he's got all the way down this back straight in China. Such a long straight. I think because also, like, there's no real... I don't know, when we've got long straights in places like Monza and stuff, there's like trees and surrounding things. Because it's just sort of grass on the left and grandstand on the right, it makes it look even longer, I think, here in China. But Sergio Perez comes across the line. He is still the slowest driver to complete a lap. Kimi Antonelli is making his way down towards turn 14 as the rest of the pack mostly make their way back into the pits for either a fresh set of tyres or just a little bit of a refuel, possibly. Kimi Antonelli coming around the final corner then. What has the Mercedes got with the Italian at the helm? George Russell making his way around two. Let's see where they slot in then. Piastri, currently the quickest, a 133.9. Hulkenberg and Portoletto, both for Audi, in second and third place. Isaac Hadjar just comes across the line to go fourth fastest now, but it's still 0.4 of a second off Piastri's lap time. Lando Norris then also 0.4 of a second off of his teammate, slots into fifth place. Verstappen, Gasly, Leclerc, Lawson, Behrman are top 10. Ocon, Lindblad, Sainz, Albon, Hamilton and Colapinto would be safe as it stands. But Hamilton and Colapinto almost certain to drop into that bottom six as Kimi Antonelli goes quick through the first sector and George Russell goes quickest of anybody through the first part of the lap as well. Kimi Antonelli then sets the fastest middle sector that we've seen so far in qualifying today. George Russell following his teammate all the way around. Kimi now that long looping turn 13 before that incredibly long straight down towards turn 14. Is there a car in front of Antonelli that he can maybe just get a little bit of slipstream from? Not really, no. Everyone's that little bit too far ahead of him as Albon and Lindblad are making their way around the final corner. And Antonelli then through turn 14 to turn 16. Get it close as you can to that apex on the left. Watch out for the gravel on the right. And across the line to go fastest of anybody by 0.6 of a second. George Russell was quickest of anybody in the first sector. Can he go quicker than his teammate? It's looking very good from George Russell. It's going to be fairly tight. Ooh, and he is just about quicker by 0.05 of a second. Told you it was going to be close between those two. George Russell just about getting himself to top spot for now. That does mean if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, it's a little bit of pressure on him. There is still 7.5 minutes to go, don't get me wrong. And Hamilton should be able to improve on that lap time substantially. But he is 2.6 seconds adrift as Fernando Alonso even goes quicker than Lewis Hamilton, who is now down in 19th spot in that Ferrari car. I know that the Ferrari launches at the start are good. Not sure they're quite that good. Lewis Hamilton starting from 19th place. It'd be interesting to see how far he could get up the running order if he did start in 19th place. The problem he's got is sort of Behrman and Ocon, also Ferrari powered in front of him. They also get off the line pretty emphatically. Lewis Hamilton getting a little bit of a slipstream as he's going down the back straight. There's a few cars in front of him that he's going to have to deal with as his teammate Charles Leclerc moves to the side of the track. Hamilton then late on the brakes into turn 14. Get that round. Turn 15 that doesn't even really exist. And then round turn 16 to lock in his lap time. And he is going to get himself out of that bottom six and put himself third fastest overall. 2.5 tenths adrift of George Russell's fastest lap time. Lando Norris then, the current world champion, coming around the first sector. What's his first sector time like? It's an improvement, but it's still a 10th down on George Russell's first sector. Looking at that bottom six, it's kind of as we expected. It's the same as what we had in SQ1 yesterday. 2 Cadillacs, 2... Oh, Lindblad. Box, we have an issue. Oh, dear. That could be very bad for Arvid Lindblad because he is currently in 16th spot. Albon and Sainz will get the opportunity to improve. Could we see a Racing Bulls drop down into that bottom 6 and be out of qualifying before we even really get going. Lando Norris improves through the middle sector as well, coming around turn 13 now. That back straight in front of him. Albon and Leclerc following him closely. Lewis Hamilton on a warm down lap coming through turn 10 as well. Carlos Sainz is out on track. Piastri is going quick too. Bottas, Lawson, Ocon, Gasly and Behrman all out on track at the moment. Russell and Antonelli in the pits. Maybe just assuming that's more than good enough. And Lando Norris comes across the line. Oh, and goes 100th of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton for third place. The Ferraris and the McLarens in terms of qualifying are kind of right there with one another up until Charles Leclerc comes across the start-finish line to put in the fastest lap of anybody and put himself within Mercedes territory. Oscar Piastri coming around the final couple of corners. Piastri's middle sector was a little bit slower than last time around, but maybe just held back on a bit of energy deployment for that straight. Can he improve in the final sector? Yes, he does indeed. And he slots himself just behind his teammate Lando Norris. They're now in 5th and 6th. So the top 6, as we kind of expected. Pierre Gasly, best of the rest at the moment. Then it's Hülkenberg, Lawson and Bortoleto, who, if we were in Q2, would be rubbing their hands together because they're their top 10. But Colapinto, Hadjar, Verstappen, Behrman, Ocon and Lindblad still would be through to Q2 as it stands at the moment. Albon, Sainz, Alonso, Bottas, Stroll and Perez would be the 6 drivers locked into their grid positions for tomorrow's Grand Prix in 17th through to 22nd place. Thank you for all the follows, by the way. The follows coming through on Twitch. Maybe today is the day that we really do it on Twitch. We always sort of have the Twitch stream there, but always lacks a little bit, if I'm honest, in terms of people. I don't know how you get views on Twitch. It just seems impossible. Like, it seems very, very difficult to kind of convince people to click you, because surely if you click on the sports category, I am all the way down at the bottom. Like, if anything, I need everybody on YouTube to also just open the Twitch stream as well on like another tab. Like, if you're on a laptop or if you're on a PC, just open up the Twitch stream on another tab. You can mute it. You don't have to have me playing twice. But at least then we've got the views on both. You know what I mean? Because then I don't know how it plays out, because I'm trying my best to grow on Twitch, but it seems almost impossible. Anyway, that's besides the point. 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in this one. Arvid Lindblad is back out on track, for those of you worried about the Racing Ball car. So clearly an issue from Red Bull, or Racing Bulls, I should say, that they could fix very, very quickly. And Lindblad coming around the middle sector will get another flying lap in. Interesting that Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Hamilton, Norris and Piastri have all decided that enough is enough. Nico Hülkenberg also hasn't come back out of the pits yet from what I can see. But apart from those 7, everyone else is back on track for the final couple of minutes. Verstappen on an outlap. Currently 15th fastest. Kind of agonizingly close to that bottom 6. I don't think Albon and Sainz will be able to find too much, and I really don't have that much faith in the Aston Martin cars either, but it's a little bit too close for comfort, considering the 4-time world champion is considered one of the faster cars in qualifying when he's got the package underneath him. Williams and Aston Martin are very disappointing. Yeah, especially considering like expectation versus reality. We were expecting Williams and Aston Martin to be like the fastest midfield teams. They are by far and away the slowest midfield teams. I know you could say, well, they're quicker than Cadillac. Cadillac are literally a brand new team. They've never raced in Formula One before. I think it's really, really disappointing from Williams and Aston Martin, especially considering they like said, oh, it's, you know, we're focusing on 2026. Like James Vowles back in 2023 was saying that Williams were focusing on 2026, and like Aston Martin have thrown more money than God like at their car program. They brought in Adrian Newey, they brought in Andy Cowell, they've brought in everybody who they could possibly convince to come from one of the top teams, and it still just hasn't worked. They brought a brand new factory, brand new wind tunnel. That just goes to show, like, even if you dedicate yourself to these 2026 regulations, you can still get it wrong. And even if you spend more money than anyone has ever spent in the world, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be quick. It's all about the teamwork. You've got to be a cohesive unit in Formula One, and you've got to have the processes there to make you quicker. Max Verstappen showing that Red Bull have still got those processes behind the scenes, goes fourth fastest for now. Carlos Sainz coming across the start-finish line to get himself out of that bottom six, and does. That's much better from Carlos Sainz, has to be said. As much as I've just been fairly negative about the Williams team, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso don't look to be improving that much. Alex Albon only went 17th fastest. Let's have a little look at Arvid Lindblad then. He's coming across the line now and does go 11th fastest. That drops Franco Colapinto and the Alpine into 17th place. Gabriel Bortoleto is looking a little bit sweaty at the moment as well. He's in 16th place and needs to improve. Here comes Franco Colapinto first, though, and does put Bortoleto down into that bottom six. Colapinto up into 9th place. Here comes Colapinto then. Can he do it? He does. 7th fastest for Gabriel Bortoleto. Puts Liam Lawson closest to the drop spot, but Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon have already completed their laps. Is Valtteri Bottas gonna knock out Liam Lawson? I mean, Sergio Perez would absolutely love his teammate to be able to do him a favour and knock out Liam Lawson. There is no love between Sergio Perez and Liam Lawson on the Formula One grid, but it's not going to be the case. Valtteri Bottas still a second adrift of Liam Lawson's lap time and slots into 20th place. So our bottom six, the same as it was yesterday. It is Sainz, Albon, Alonso, Bottas, Stroll, and Perez down in that bottom six. 2 Williamses, 2 Aston Martins, and 2 Cadillac cars. First time tuning into a live. Welcome, welcome. I catch up with Crash Happy often. Love it. Thank you so much, mate. Like, we are trying really hard with Crash Happy this year. Got some news coming to you guys sort of around the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, which will definitely be a boost not only to this channel, but also to the Crash Happy channel as well. Yeah, 2026 is hopefully going to be the year of Crash Happy. We're properly going on about it. Stop with the Max yapping. I mean, Max is only, 4th fastest there. It's not over yet. Isaac Hadjar 9th fastest. We're expecting them to be where they are, though. Like, it is those top 4 teams, apart from Gabriel Bortoleto sneaking into the top 8 there. I was going to say it's the top 4 teams in the top 8 spots, but actually there's an Audi in there, which is insane. Like, the fact that Audi are this quick are mental to me. Bottas beating Stroll is rough. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. How much did he beat him by? It was a considerable amount as well. It's half a second between Bottas and Stroll. Ay caramba. If you are a Lance Stroll fan out there, this is not the season to be watching. Or if you're a Fernando Alonso fan, if you're an Aston Martin fan, well, congratulations, you can go back to bed. They are out and they are not getting anywhere close to getting through to a Q2 anytime soon. Carlos Sainz was fairly close. Only a couple attempts between Lawson and Sainz, but then you look beyond that and Albon's another half a second down. Alonso's half a second beyond that. Like, those bottom 3 teams this weekend are really substantially the bottom 3 teams in terms of qualifying, as we've seen throughout both qualifying sessions that we've had so far this weekend. At Singapore, Max could win this year. Maybe that's the thing, right? They've gone, right, we have won basically every single other track. So if we could just like round out Max Verstappen, you know, if there's a record that he, like, is there a record for a driver having won at every single track on like a calendar? No, I suppose the tracks change too much, don't they? I was going to say, you can't really say like, oh, they've won at every single track, because the tracks literally change every 2-3 years. You could say like within that regulation cycle, but then we're now in another regulation cycle, and Max never won in Singapore throughout 22 and 25. Is that the only track that Max didn't win at? Like, if you look at all the tracks we had between 2022 and 2025, is Singapore the only one he didn't win? Because if it is, that's a real shame. Like, I'd have loved that. That would have been such a niche little stat that I could have made a short about. Max Verstappen won at every single track throughout the 22 to 26 or 25 regulation cycle. I love a short about a niche stat. If you didn't see the short from yesterday, very much that build. It's a short about how the qualifying one in Australia is the most experienced 6 drivers we've ever seen eliminated in a Q1 session. Yeah, it is. That is such a shame. I thought that might be the case. We now also have Madrid. That's true, but now we're in the new regulation cycle. So it's reset now. George Russell is currently the leader of the regulation cycle winning at every track stat. We'll keep an eye on it. I mean, I'm hoping that George Russell doesn't win every single race this year, because that's one way of getting that ticked off fairly soon. Although we've then got Portugal next year. So he would then need to win. He'd need to win every single race this year and win Portugal next year for it to like be a solid stat. And then it depends what we do until 2026. Winter slop? That is not winter slop. That is a very good regulation, like, short, interesting idea. I allow winter slop comments when it is. The RB is the worst one on the front of the field? Yeah, definitely so. Does seem like the rankings at the moment certainly seem to be Mercedes, in terms of qualifying, absolutely top. And then in terms of race pace, Mercedes and Ferrari are kind of fairly close to one another. Like, it's kind of touching distance. I think Mercedes are the quicker car still in race trim, but I think Ferrari are much, much closer in race trim than they are in qualifying trim. Then you've kind of got McLaren that little bit back. McLaren and Ferrari are fairly close to one another in qualifying trim, but the Ferrari's way better in race pace. And McLaren seem to be sort of a step behind when it comes to race pace of those cars. And then, yeah, certainly Red Bull seem to be that next step behind. Although, actually, in terms of race pace for the Red Bull, we didn't get to see fully what it was capable of, because Max Verstappen was starting from P19 and Isaac Hadjar obviously had an issue in Australia. And also, I think that the Red Bull seems to be way more track dependent. You know, like Ferrari and Mercedes still look good this weekend, and they looked good last weekend on very, very different circuits. McLaren the same. They kind of look in that middling section of the top 4 teams. Again, sort of last weekend and this weekend. Red Bull looks really good last weekend. And I think, you know, had they qualified better with Max Verstappen, would have been right up there. They look slow this weekend. So I think Red Bull are maybe the most interchangeable in terms of pace. And then in terms of the midfield, like Audi still look really good. Obviously, Racing Bulls had a great weekend last weekend. Arvid Lindblad was super quick. Haas looked great. Alpine looked much better, actually. I think Gasly could stand out this weekend. Like, it is just Williams, Aston Martin, and Cadillac that are kind of rounding out the Formula One grid and not really taking part in anything meaningful at the moment, isn't it? It's kind of those 3 that have separated themselves out. Q2 has begun, though. We haven't got any lap times on the board as of yet. Kimi Antonelli is actually going to be the man to get us going in this first part of qualifying. Sorry, second part of qualifying. Feels like the first part because it was inevitable as to which 6 cars were going to drop out. George Russell coming around the final sector as well. Leclerc and Hamilton out. So Mercedes left it late in Q1. They're now getting out as soon as they possibly can in Q2. Maybe just want to get a lap time locked in. Hadjar, Norris, Piastri, and Verstappen all out on track as well. So it's those top 4 teams that have decided to come out on track. And then Nico Hülkenberg joins them for Audi. Esteban Ocon also making his way to the end of the pit lane. Let's have a little look at this Kimi Antonelli lap time as he comes across the start-finish line. It's not the longest run down towards turn 1, so we saw from the Ferraris, though, can still be used during the sprint race to jump up a few positions. Antonelli around the looping turn 2 and then into turn 3. I always find that couple of corners quite tricky to absolutely nail in the Formula One game. It's a very tricky couple of corners that make that first sector stand out. It's a very very can't remember the word. Very standout few corners where I feel like you see that and you always think Shanghai. That little curly bit at the top of the track map. That's how I remember what Shanghai looks like. And the absolutely massive straight at the bottom. Antonelli through the middle sector. Quicker than George Russell. So Russell quickest in the first sector. Antonelli quickest in the second sector. And the two Mercedes cars now coming down the back straight with one another. Frederick Vesti watches on as the third driver as Mercedes AMG. Charles Leclerc goes quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. Leclerc with a 27.8 through that second sector. So Russell fastest in the first sector, and somebody has just taken Nico Hülkenberg again, maybe? No, Lewis Hamilton has taken the fastest middle part of the lap as Antonelli sets a 132.9 to get us going. George Russell is going to improve on that fairly substantially, a 132.5 from George Russell. Let's see where Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton slot in. Leclerc was going fairly quickly through the middle sector, and then Hamilton even quicker still, so they should be fairly close. And actually, Charles Leclerc does get the better of Kimi Antonelli. I thought he was going to slot in just behind. He actually slots in just ahead of Kimi Antonelli. And Lewis Hamilton should be there as well, a tenth of a second quicker than his teammate. Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli are top four in that order. Very nice indeed. Isaac Hadjar is going to be the next car to set a flying lap time. Here he comes across the start-finish line, and he is a little adrift. He's 0.4 of a second slower than Kimi Antonelli after those two came to blows during the sprint race earlier on today. Lando Norris then takes fifth spot from Isaac Hadjar by a tenth of a second or so. And Oscar Piastri slots into seventh spot. So Max Verstappen then the final driver of that sort of expected top 8 to come across the start-finish line and actually goes fifth fastest. So we have Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli, Verstappen, Norris, Hadjar and Piastri. And now Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg goes 9th fastest. Pierre Gasly, Colapinto, Esteban Ocon all sort of waiting to set lap times as well. Gasly starting a flying lap time for Alpine. Colapinto going very slowly as Esteban Ocon comes past him and goes 10th fastest. Here comes Ollie Behrman though, and he gets himself up into the top 8. Displaces Norris, Hadjar and Piastri. Ollie Behrman, that's a very, very clean lap from the Haas car there. Gabriel Bortoleto is going to be next across the start-finish line. He's just coming around turn 14. Oh, he gets all out of shape through turn 14, trying to get the power down, and that Audi car just wiggled around. And that is going to be a fairly slow lap time from Bortoleto because of it. And it is indeed 12th fastest overall. Arvid Lindblad now coming around turn 14. Gasly and Colapinto have just gone through the first sectors, and I'll tell you what, Gasly is looking very quick indeed as he's come through the middle part of the track. Could see Gasly getting Hülkenberg down into that bottom 6. At the moment, it's Ocon, Lindblad, Bortoleto, Colapinto, Gasly and Lawson. But Gasly, Colapinto and Lawson now on their first timed laps. Gasly making his way down the back straight, gets a little bit of a tow from the Audi, and now makes his way past into turn 14. He comes, leaves it late on the brakes, has to get that power down smoothly, unlike Gabriel Bortoleto was able to do. And he comes around at turn 16 then. Careful of the gravel on the right-hand side of the track, run down to the line and gets himself 8th fastest, puts Nico Hülkenberg down into the bottom 5. Here comes Franco Colapinto to only go 13th fastest. It's not good enough to get himself through to Q3. And then finally, Liam Lawson, the last man to set a lap time. It's a fairly decent first and second sector from Lawson, a 24.6 and a 28.1. Round turn 16 he comes. Will that knock out Oscar Piastri? It will not. 14th fastest for Liam Lawson, just ahead of his rookie teammate by a couple of hundredths of a second. And it's Hulkenberg, Ocon, Colapinto, Lawson, Lindblad, and Bortoletto, the 6 drivers that need to improve. Stop spamming Indian Grand Prix. I can't see the Indian Grand Prix coming back anytime soon. I'd like Malaysia back. I'd like Turkey back, you know. I know there was a lot of talk about possibly replacing the 2 Grand Prix in April that we are unlikely to see with Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. I think it's too late now, though. I think Formula One, unfortunately, have left it way too late to pick up another venue. You know, it's not kind of COVID time where they wouldn't want fans and stuff in there, and they just need a track for track's sake. Like, I think if the track were going to host a Grand Prix, they'd want the ticket sales, or at least compensation for those ticket sales that they would miss out on. And I don't know if Formula One are willing to pay like, usually the circuit pays Formula One to put on the race. And then the circuit obviously takes any profits from ticket sales, any profits from foods, beverages, etc., etc., etc. Like all of the extra stuff other than the actual racing, which Formula One obviously come and put on. A little bit like, this is why it also gets called the traveling circus, right? It's very much like you pay for Formula One to turn up, and then you have to kind of make your money with everything around that, is how it generally works. Apart from Vegas, which is put on by Formula One themselves. I don't know if there's, you know, Formula One wanted to replace the 2 circuits in April. I think they might have to pay the track to put it on, if you know what I mean. Like, rather than the track would say, look, we'll put on the Grand Prix for you, but at this sort of late notice, we're probably not going to sell all the tickets. We're probably not going to be able to get as many food vendors or as many blah, blah, blah as we need to be able to be sort of profitable on that end. So they'd probably want some compensation. And I don't think Formula One would be willing to pay that, to be honest. So I don't think we're going to get many... I don't think we're going to get many Grand Prix in April, if any at all. There are many fans in India, most certainly, but I don't think Formula One want that. I don't think Formula One want that. I don't think India want that, like the government and people sort of surrounding it. Turn 14 for Oscar Piastri. His first opportunity at racing these 2026 cars during the sprint race earlier today. Did fairly decently, got some points, you know. Wasn't absolutely scintillating. But Oscar Piastri now hoping to get a full Grand Prix experience tomorrow, as he missed out on his home Grand Prix in Australia. Coming around turn 2 and turn 3, weaving his way through, trying to get the power down. That battery being deployed as he gets himself into straight mode, down towards turn 5 and through turn 6. There we go. Round turn 6 he comes. Oscar Piastri, a 24.2 in terms of that first sector time. Charles Leclerc has actually just gone quickest of anybody in the first sector with a 24 dead. So he's 0.2 of a second up on Oscar Piastri just through that first part of the track. Getting himself through that second sector, though, Oscar Piastri, and it's an improvement once again, but I'm keeping an eye on Charles Leclerc's lap time as Leclerc goes quicker through the middle sector again. Charles Leclerc is really finding some lap time here. He's a couple attempts up on George Russell's lap time as he goes into the final sector. Oscar Piastri is indeed down towards the end of this back straight that Charles Leclerc is now coming onto. Let's have a little look then as Oscar Piastri is going to come across the line first, but keep your eyes peeled for where Charles Leclerc is at, because that is a very quick first and second sector from the Monegasque. Oscar Piastri puts himself 5th fastest and just gives himself a little bit of breathing space to that bottom 6 that he does not want to be part of. Charles Leclerc does go quickest. I was thinking he was fine in lap time in chunks throughout the first and second sectors, and he managed to just about hold on to it into the final part as well. Lewis Hamilton just a 1/10 of a second or so adrift of his teammate. George Russell is on an outlap, so we'll see the Mercedes cars in Russell and Antonelli rebuttal to these Ferraris as Lando Norris comes across the line and the reigning world champion goes 5th fastest overall. Verstappen, Behrman, Gasly and Hadjar all on outlaps as well. Russell is about to come around the final corner. Antonelli is already through turn 1. Hadjar and Verstappen in the final sector. Bortoletto following around to turn 14 as well. Lindblad and Lawson just coming around the back straight. Nico Hülkenberg has not improved through the first sector. It's looking unlikely that he's going to be able to sneak that Audi through into the top 10. We're expecting the top 8 to be fairly standard, and it's currently Behrman and Gasly who are the midfield maestros of the weekend. They are up in 8th and 9th place at the moment. Nico Hülkenberg does improve a touch through the middle sector, though, and gets himself back within contention. Needs a very solid final sector. Needs to absolutely nail turns 13 and 14 to get the launch out of turn 13. Moves across the track to try and get a little bit of a slipstream from the McLaren in front of him. Picks up a little bit of a toe behind Pierre Gasly as well, does Nico Hülkenberg. He's maybe got a little bit lucky there with the cars in front of him, giving him just that little bit of space. Gasly also moving out of the way for him now as he comes through turn 16. Is Nico Hülkenberg going to be able to sneak his way through to a Q3? Not this time around. It's 0.02 of a second slower than Isaac Hadjar, so we are not going to see Nico Hülkenberg into Q3. Here comes Kimi Antonelli, and they do. The Mercedes team lashing back at the Ferraris and retaking top spot by 0.04 of a second. Antonelli from Leclerc. George Russell on a flying lap at the moment. But I'm keeping an eye on Isaac Hadjar as he's coming across the start-finish line and doesn't improve. Stays 10th fastest as Isaac Hadjar. Max Verstappen only improves by 1 position. Puts himself above Oscar Piastri now. It's still Behrman and Gasly inside of that top 10. Oh, and there's a yellow flag in the final corner. And that means it's going to completely ruin everybody who is on a flying lap right now. Arvid Lindblad. And that's why. It is Gabriel Bortoletto who has put himself in the gravel very close to the pit entry. And he's managed to get that car going again, has made his way straight into the pit entry. But unfortunately, that has ruined pretty much everybody who was on a flying lap there. Lindblad and Lawson and Ocon all had to make their way past the yellow flags. So they went a little bit slower. Pierre Gasly actually didn't improve through the middle part of the lap, but is at least going to be able to finish his lap. I don't know if he even needs to, does he? Maybe just wants to do it for the practice, but comes across the start-finish line and goes 5th fastest. Does Pierre Gasly absolutely consolidates himself as a top 10 performer. Although, actually, Franco Colapinto is still on a lap from that bottom 6, and Franco Colapinto goes 12th fastest. Misses out. But yeah, Ocon, Lawson, Lindblad really missed out there, and unfortunately, Bortoletto was the man to blame. He went wide, and we didn't really get to see the pace of Ocon, Lawson, and Lindblad there and how close they could have gotten to knocking out Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar was only 0.02 of a second quicker than Hülkenberg, so he was certainly within touching distance of those bottom 6 cars. But Hadjar just about makes it through. And once again, it is Gasly and Behrman who are standing out in the midfield when it comes to qualifying. Here's a replay of Bortoletto. He has found turn 14 really tricky, I will say. The couple of times we've seen him there, and actually, just gets all out of shape on the entry to turn 16, loses the rear end of the car, and actually bumps the car into the Qatar Airways barriers that are across the track from turn 16, goes through both gravel traps, and comes to a rest. Doesn't look like there was too much damage to the car. I think it had slowed down enough. And turn 16 is not a super high-speed corner either. Just maybe gets a little bit too much curb on the right-hand side on the entry. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Just destabilizes the rear end of the car. Tries to sort of, just a little bit of a tank slapper. Basically tries to turn into it. The car then turns the other way, so he tries to correct it. And then he's just fighting the car and is wiggling around underneath him. And there is nothing that he could do to save that once he hits the gravel traps and is sending his way into the barriers. So Bortoletto will start in 16th place. Should be a fairly easy repair job, though. I imagine a little bit of gravel maybe underneath the car. And a couple of bits of carbon fiber have maybe taken a bump or two, but nothing substantial to put back together. And as I say, he did manage to get back into the pits of his own power. That does mean he is now out. Lindblad, Lawson, Ocon, Colapinto, and Hulkenberg joining him. So it is the two Audis, two Audis, the two Racing Bulls, but only one of the Alpines and one of the Hasses. I was going to say we're a little bit 2x2 today, but actually Gasly and Behrman standing out in the midfield pack. One Alpine and one Haas through into the top 10 shootout. And Gasly looks like he's absolutely flying. I know that, we talked about this yesterday when Gasly kind of got through to sprint qualifying 3. Gasly really stood out last year for me in terms of qualifying. He out-qualified a lot of the cars that we were talking about, really often. We were often talking about, Hulkenberg's got this many points. Hadjar's got this many points. Who's going to finish best of the rest in the midfield pack in terms of the championship last season. Gasly actually out-qualified in terms of average qualifying position and in terms of... not average qualifying position, but in terms of number of Q3 appearances, Gasly was there. He got like 10 out of 24 last season. Gasly is really, really good at qualifying, but he just needed to be given a car that could also then actually perform in the races, which he did not have last year anywhere on the calendar. So hopefully this season, we're going to see Gasly actually continue that qualifying record that he does have and continue the qualifying that he puts in because he's decent in qualifying. And now also maybe, a little bonus where he's got a car that he can actually fight for some positions in the race with as well. Oh my goodness. Thank you for all of the views on the stream. Didn't realize we were quite up there. If you could hit the like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And also, we're trying to get the Twitch viewers up. So if you're watching on YouTube, but you're on like a laptop or you're on like a PC, and you can open up the Twitch in another tab, why not? It's completely and utterly free for you. And it just helps me out a massive amount. But thank you for all the subscriptions and the likes on the stream. Really do really do appreciate it. Close between 10th and 12th. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just a real shame that we didn't get to see Ocon, Lawson, and Lindblad like properly put in their laps because they ended up going into the yellow flags in that final sector. So we don't really know where Ocon, Lawson, and Lindblad would have shaken out. I mean, I guess we can look at their first and second sector times, but it's so tight. Like, it's so close between all of the cars in there. Hulkenberg, 0.02 of a second. Colapinto then 0.03 of a second behind that. Ocon's then only a 10th. Lawson then only a couple of tenths. Like, they could have certainly found some time. Maybe not Lawson and Lindblad so much, but certainly Esteban Ocon, I feel like maybe could have knocked out Isaac Hadjar there, depending on how much time he would have lost through turn 16. Prediction, Lawson to Alpine in 2027. I was going to start writing that video, actually, where I look at kind of who I think will go where in 2027, because I think there'll actually be lots of movement on the Formula One grid for the 2027 season. I think a few of the guys that have sort of locked in there, or a few of the guys that sort of made their moves in preparation for 2026 are maybe not so happy with the decisions that they've made. Carlos Sainz being the key one. Carlos Sainz had his choice. He could have gone to Williams. He could have gone to Alpine. He could have gone to Audi. I suppose he can take the fact that he got a couple of podiums for Williams last season. It's a couple more trophies in the cabinet. But now, it's not looking like the best of choices from Carlos Sainz, is it? When you've got a Haas and an Alpine in the top 10, and the Audi's looking sort of closest competitor. Could have been at any of those teams. Could Carlos Sainz realistically, maybe not Haas, I don't think they'd have had the budget, but Could have certainly been at Alpine, Carlos Sainz, and could have definitely been at Audi. Instead is in a Williams car that can barely make it through to qualifying. And then when it does qualify, it's in the bottom 6 anyway. We are into Q3 though. Let's keep an eye on these lap times as we do want to see who's on pole position for tomorrow. Early predictions. I'd say George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, and the Mercedes car is just a level above in terms of energy deployment when it comes to qualifying. I'd be very, very impressed. Oh, I say that. I've jinxed him. George Russell's come to a stop out on track. George Russell's come to a stop. He can't get it going again. He's got no battery. He can't get it going. George Russell's... Oh! Well, hello, hello. First twist of the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix weekend. He can't get it going again. Oh my God. I'm almost hoping that he can't. Because I'd love to see him start P10 and see what he can do. But also, the battle between him and Leclerc. He's got it going again. He's got it going again. Oh my goodness. He's got it going again. But is it going to be a problem? Is he going to have to go back to the pits? Oh, it does not sound good. It does not sound good from the onboards. That engine is not happy. There's something like, it's almost like he can't change gear or something. As we look at Kimi Antonelli coming around the final. Can't shift gears. Is it a gearbox issue? Oh, it's going to be a long, long run back to the pits as well. There's only 10 minutes on the clock. There's an extra minute in qualifying 3 this season, but it's going to be a very long run back for George Russell, who's, I think, come to a stop again. No, he hasn't. It's just my timer came to a little bit of a freeze. Let's see what George Russell can do then. Looking at like 5 things all at once. Russell's going slow. I'm trying to look at Antonelli's lap time. There's too much going on in this qualifying session. Antonelli now catching up to his teammate. George Russell's going to have to be careful not to get in the way of Kimi Antonelli here. Does move to the inside of the track so Antonelli can go around the outside of him. Charles Leclerc's pretty decent through the first sector as well. Here comes Charles Leclerc through the middle part of the lap. Oh, he's a little bit down on Kimi Antonelli as Charles Leclerc as they come towards the final sector together. George Russell is still trundling down that back straight as Lewis Hamilton is now also joining the party in this back straight as well. Norris and Piastri having to move out of the way of Ferraris. And here comes Antonelli with a 132.3 for now. George Russell's going to have to peel into the pits here. He's got 9.5 minutes left to get that Mercedes car going again and get it working. Charles Leclerc then round the final corner. Can he get close to pole position here? He's 0.3 of a second down on Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli finding that shifting gears as we head into Q3. Lewis Hamilton across the start-finish line. Also 0.4 of a second down on his teammate. Hamilton not able to step it up for Q3 at the moment. Norris and Piastri, I would imagine, will slot in just behind the 2 Ferraris, but we'll see. That's left the door open there as Lewis Hamilton a little bit as Ollie Behrman comes across the line with a very slow 133.9 from him. 1.7 seconds off the pole position time. Did Lewis Hamilton make a little mistake? Oh, a little oversteer, yeah. Oh, and a big oversteer there as well. 2 kind of snaps of oversteer through turn 9 and turn 10 that really didn't help him out there, Lewis Hamilton, and that's where those 0.4 of a second disappeared from underneath his Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, did he have a similar moment? Oh, Charles Leclerc, yeah, also got a little bit out of shape. Oh, in turn 13 as well. So it just compromised him getting onto that back straight, and then you lose quite a lot of time because if you're just a little bit slower out of turn 13, you lose that all the way down. And then Pierre Gasly now coming around the final corner. Can Gasly get himself in and amongst the McLaren cars maybe, or possibly even pick off a Ferrari if Lewis Hamilton can't improve upon his time? Pierre Gasly around the final corner. Goes 5th fastest for now. It's not stunning from Pierre Gasly either. It's a 10th of a second slower than Ollie Behrman as Lando Norris goes 2nd fastest. Oh, I was expecting him to be a little bit behind Charles Leclerc, but he's in fact just a touch quicker than Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. And Oscar Piastri the same. Is Antonelli, Piastri, Norris our top 3. Leclerc and Hamilton 4th and 5th. Behrman and Gasly. Hadjar and Verstappen then yet to set lap times. Here comes Hadjar, goes 6th fastest and displaces the 2 midfield cars in Behrman and Gasly. And Verstappen then goes quicker than his teammate by a couple of hundredths of a second. The Red Bull car still not looking phenomenal underneath Verstappen or Isaac Hadjar. But it is kind of as we expected. There's a Mercedes at the top. It's maybe not the Mercedes that you expected. Piastri, Norris, Leclerc and Hamilton all fighting for that kind of second row of the grid. Well, currently front row of the grid with Piastri as well. And then Verstappen and Hadjar just that little bit off, but still ahead of the midfield cars in Behrman and Gasly. Haven't heard anything from George Russell with 6.5 minutes left on the clock in this one. Could be a very interesting one if George Russell can't get that Mercedes car running in the way that he wants to. George Russell, hurry up. Yeah, I think he's probably saying the same to his engineers at this point, but if it's a gearbox issue, he just couldn't change gears. At first, well, came to a stop as he was coming around turn 3, turn 4, and just completely ran out of gas. Then clearly the team walked him through a bit of a reset, but that reset also meant that once he did get going again, he wasn't going very quickly. And yeah, just could not change. If it is a gearbox issue for George Russell, then that's going to be curtains. And there's Mercedes engineers all over the car. And they're putting some air into the car by the looks of things. Well, maybe they've got that car going again. George Russell's only going to get one run at it, if he does get a run at it at all. Looks like they should be good to go. Change of steering wheel as well for George Russell. So possibly a steering wheel issue. And a software change, but George Russell changes the steering wheel, gets it back onto the car. The engineers peer over the top of the cockpit, hoping that it's going to get all going again. He's still got a couple of minutes because we have got all of the cars now into the garage. Yeah, it could be an electronic glitch. If it is, that would be much better for them, because if it was a gearbox issue, then that would have been curtains. But at the moment, it's looking like they are trying to get that car going again. So possibly just an electronics issue that they've got inside of that car. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just trying to peer into that Mercedes garage from any perspective that I can do. Antonelli still quickest though, so showing that the Mercedes car still does have the advantage in terms of qualifying pace as we expect. Piastri and Norris then behind, actually getting the better of the Ferraris by a little bit of a distance there. Oscar Piastri almost a 10th of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton, to be fair, did have a big snap of oversteer, which would have put him much, much closer to Piastri and Norris's lap times. And then Verstappen and Hadjar kind of look in a little realm of their own at the moment. Behrman and Gasly, though, much further adrift than I thought they were going to be. Thought they'd be a touch closer to at least the Red Bulls. And here we go then. Antonelli back out on track first, followed by Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton and Gasly. Ollie Behrman making his way out of the garage as well. And then Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar coming out side by side, currently in the pit lane. Piastri's going to get out ahead of them, though. The wheels are going onto George Russell's car. They've got 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Oh my goodness. Mercedes are going to have to gamble maybe and just throw George Russell out. See what happens. Is it worth it? Or do they just shuffle it around and decide actually starting from P10, but us being able to work on the car is more vital? Of course, no points scored today. So it's all well and good getting pole position, but if the car then doesn't work tomorrow, it's all for nothing. As Kimi Antonelli now comes around the final corner. George Russell is out. George Russell is out of the Mercedes garage, and he's going to have to do an absolutely blistering lap around here to make sure that he's got the tyres warmed up into the right spot, but also actually gets around before the checkered flag. Antonelli now coming around the first sector. George Russell is out on track. He's got 2 minutes to go. Should be more than enough time. As Antonelli a little bit slower than himself through the first sector compared to last time around. Lando Norris just displacing George Russell. Norris on a flying lap behind Antonelli. So it is Antonelli, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Gasly, Behrman, Piastri, Hadjar, Verstappen in that order that we're going to see come across the start-finish line as Lando Norris goes quickest of anybody in the first sector for the McLaren team. And Charles Leclerc is a 10th down in that first sector and has gone even a little bit slower than himself last time around. Antonelli, though, sets the fastest first sector time that we've seen so far. Antonelli then round that turn 13, looping turn 13, which launches you down the straight as Lando Norris also improves on his previous lap time through the second sector. Charles Leclerc has just gone purple in the middle part of the lap. This could be very tight between these three. Antonelli, Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, all on flying laps right now. Hamilton improving on his lap time as well. Here comes Kimi Antonelli to extend his advantage by a couple of tenths of a second at the top of the timing sheets. I think that's going to be very, very tricky for any of these guys to get anywhere close to. But here comes Lando Norris, who's attempting it first and doesn't improve. It was a poor final sector from Lando Norris after a stunning first sector. Charles Leclerc then round the final couple of corners. Can he go quicker? Yes. Charles Leclerc would be on the front row of the grid as it stands right now. Lewis Hamilton coming around the final corner. Just an update. George Russell has started his flying lap as Hamilton goes a 10th, not even a 10th, a 100th quicker than Charles Leclerc to go second fastest. Piastri still fourth and Lando Norris fifth. Gasly comes across the line to actually displace both of the Red Bull cars. And here comes Ollie Behrman, who does the same. Puts Verstappen and Hadjar back down into 8th and 9th place. Gasly's lap time is brilliant. That was more like the lap time I was expecting from the Alpine and the Haas cars. But Gasly absolutely flying in that Alpine this afternoon. Isaac Hadjar then comes across the line. He's 7th fastest, so gets in front of Ollie Behrman, but can't beat Gasly. And Gasly also beats out Max Verstappen. He's in 6th spot, Verstappen down in 7th, Hadjar 8th, and Behrman 9th for now. Where is George Russell going to slot himself into? He is a 10th down on his teammate through that second sector, and he does not look comfortable in the car through turn 13 either. We're on board with George Russell. It was not the smoothest exit of turn 12, and that really compromised him through turn 13 as well. He then has to run all the way down this back straight. George Russell in contention for pole position, or is it going to be Kimi Antonelli to start on the top spot for tomorrow's Grand Prix? He's come around turn 14 smoothly. Turn 16 to come. The gravel on the right-hand side is close, and it's 2/10 slower than his teammate. George Russell has saved it for Mercedes and made sure that their 1-2 rankings in these qualifying sessions keeps going. But it is the other way around. And Kimi Antonelli had already slotted himself in front of the number one in the pit lane. So luckily for him, he is indeed number one on the timing sheets. Antonelli takes pole position. It is then George Russell in second spot. The two Ferraris are going to be lurking, though, on the second row of the grid tomorrow. Goodness me. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. So it's kind of 2x2x2. In the front three rows of the grid. The Mercedes cars, then the Ferraris, and then the McLarens. Pierre Gasly best of the rest and actually beating out the Red Bulls to start in 7th place. He'll be alongside Max Verstappen in 8th. Isaac Hadjar was the 9th fastest car in that final qualifying session, and he'll start alongside Ollie Behrman inside of the point scoring places, but in 10th spot. And then those 6 cars that dropped out in Q2, it would be Hulkenberg and Colapinto starting 11th and 12th, Ocon and Lawson 13th and 14th, Lindblad and Bortoletto in 15th and 16th spot. And then it's 2x2. Oh no, sorry. The 2 Williamses in 17th and 18th were the closest competitors to drop out in Q1. And then it's Alonso and Bottas who will start on the penultimate row of the grid, with Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez rounding out the 22 cars in this 2026 Formula One season. Cool. George Russell was close there. Came across the line with about 15 seconds left on the clock. So Mercedes nailed it in terms of that timing. They did not have a lot of wiggle room, but they got out there again, and George Russell doing the business for now. 0.2 of a second slower than his teammate. Kimi Antonelli takes his first pole position of the 2026 season. Does feel like there might be a few more to come, considering how quick that Mercedes car looks in qualifying trim. But Hamilton and Leclerc will be lurking when it comes to tomorrow's race start. We know the Ferrari is electric off the line, and Hamilton and Leclerc will be right there alongside the Mercedes cars. You have to imagine going into those first couple of corners. Piastri and Norris then in 5th and 6th place will try and consolidate some good points for McLaren. Gasly, though, will be looking to be best of the rest and even better than maybe some of those top teams in that Alpine car. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate all of the support over on Twitch and, of course, on YouTube as well. If you are watching on Twitch, hit us a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit a like, because we will be live once again for tomorrow's race in China. And it will be very, very exciting. If the sprint race is anything to go by, tomorrow's race should be absolutely incredible. And I cannot wait for it. Thank you so much once more, and I will see you then.